Advanced technology and events are frequently described in ancient tales and artifacts. Are they signs of communication with extraterrestrial life? Through the prism of ancient astronaut hypotheses, this narrative examines the global flood myths, Ezekiel's chariot, King Solomon's airship, and the enigmatic Vimanas. Narrator, Central America, Guatemala. Most mainstream academics and archaeologists believe that the earliest human settlements in this area were established more than 14,000 years ago. The figure of a man sleeping within what looks to be a turtle's shell is one of several ancient relics that may be found here. Tsoukalos. What is this? I asked the local archaeologist. Without even flinching, they continued. Well, according to legend, these are the giant flying turtles that flew around in Guatemala. The entire body is designed to be aerodynamic. This turtle's extremities are aerodynamically squeezed against its body. Additionally, if you look closely, you will see goggles or spectacles similar to those worn by modern jet pilots. This person is from the same culture in the same area where the clay turtle was made. Thus, they were fully aware of the appearance of a turtle. It resembles a turtle that is snapping. And everything except a turtle is present here. Something else is involved. They were able to utilize the turtle as the greatest illustration of what they would have observed the gods flying around to establish their frame of reference. Narrator. The Greek king Alexander the Great organized the invasion of India in 329 BC, halfway around the world. However, an odd aerial strike is said to have halted his army, according to ancient texts. Childress. These flying discs emerged in the sky as Alexander's army prepared to cross the Indus and invade India. Additionally, they started diving bombing Alexander's army's war elephants. These flying discs caused stampedes among Alexander's war elephants, which then swarmed across his army, destroying everything, including the camps. No, we're not going into India, Alexander's generals told him after their meeting. We are going to go back. The war campaign came to an end at that point. Narrator. However, whether in antiquity or much more recently, people have frequently claimed that so-called flying saucers are impervious to gravity and the fundamental rules of physics. Greer. How in the world could it be doing that? Is something I'm aware of from people who have seen extraterrestrial vehicles in the current era. For instance, it turns right without slowing down while traveling at 20,000 miles per hour across the sky. When employing standard aerodynamics, that is not feasible. Childress. Saucers are said to abruptly turn at right angles at extremely high speeds and simply zip off in seemingly impossible aerobatic routines when planes are scrambled after them. And the technology they're utilizing, which is a gravity control, can help to explain this. Artificial gravity is what it is. Narrator. NASA has launched humans into space on big rockets over the past 50 years. Some have compared this technique to just setting a man atop a big firecracker and lighting the fuse. More sophisticated propulsion technologies will be needed if a man is to get farther into space. NASA is investigating a number of them. Robert H. Frisbee. NASA and other researchers are currently developing and studying a wide range of sophisticated propulsion systems. Using a launch assist catapult is an unusual way to do that. You construct a maglev slip that carries your rocket, raises it to roughly Mach 1, and then launches the rocket from it using technology borrowed from magnetic levitation trains. Narrator. Although these futuristic propulsion systems resemble something from science fiction, ancient alien theorists contend that these same cutting-edge technologies were used by earlier civilizations. As evidence of extraterrestrial visitation, they cite several cultural tales that depict sky people arriving on Earth in metallic-looking machines or fire-breathing dragons. David Childress. Myths and tales, in my opinion, have a genuine foundation. A fundamental truth here, in my opinion, is that people were indeed flying in airships in ancient times, just like we do now, despite the fact that they have frequently been muddled and overstated. Narrator. However, it's possible that these airships use the same kind of propulsion engines as we do now to get to Earth. The Indian subcontinent may hold the solution. India. Its contemporary cities and rural townships are home to more than 1.1 billion people who speak hundreds of languages and follow a wide variety of religious beliefs. With communities that date back more than 11,000 years, India is regarded as one of the oldest civilizations. Several of the earliest records of antiquated technologies can also be found there. Vimanas are flying aircraft that are described in varied but vivid detail in ancient Sanskrit scriptures that date back to 6000 BC. Engboom, Elgund. Vimanas are airplanes. Additionally, some jet engines power them. All of the descriptions of the flight behavior, elephants fleeing in terror, seem to support this. Since there was a lot of pressure coming from behind the Vimanas, the grass was flung out, allowing us to describe the spaceship in this way. Narrator. Many of the Vimana manuscripts contain passages that appear to depict contemporary machinery and technology, despite the fact that mainstream historians consider them to be myths. David Childress. Metals used in these crafts are examined by the Vimanika Shastra. It discusses power sources and electricity. It discusses the pilots and the uniforms they must wear. It discusses the cuisine they consume. Even the armaments stored on these airships are discussed. Algund, Inboom. The flight manuals of the Vimanas are very similar to those found in the contemporary passenger airline industry. Of course, military jet engines also have flight manuals since pilots need to learn about the aircraft they intend to fly. Michael Cremo. We also discover that mental control is possible over these Vimanas. Additionally, contemporary militaries are starting to develop similar technology. Even with our current level of technological advancement, practically every example of a true extraterrestrial culture that involves sophisticated electromagnetic systems that interact with organized and coherent cognition would appear to us to be nearly magical. People start to think, well, you're losing me here now. However, I remind people that if you're talking about a real intergalactic civilization, you've got to push yourself a little bit. Narrator. What are alien creatures attempting to tell us if, as ancient astronaut theorists think, they have been reaching out to us for centuries? David Wilcock. It keeps coming to mind that we are dealing with what might be referred to as the hidden directorate, a guiding force of sentient beings who may even be our ancestors. They have been assisting humanity since the beginning of our evolution on this planet and will step in at strategic moments to try to steer our progress in a particular direction. Tsoukalos, George O.A. Why did some of our predecessors instruct us to build an ark or a building? In my opinion, to guarantee the survival of humanity. In the majority of the old myths we know, the gods were actually quite good. However, there are tales of evil gods and evil alien forces, and over the ages, these aliens have contributed to our continued existence. Narrator. The several big flood myths contain one of the earliest and most popular accounts of supernatural or divine influence in human affairs. Flood myths are not limited to the Bible. They exist throughout the world. They are found across South America. They are found in Native American customs. They can be found in the flood, the Ragnarok epic, and Celtic customs. Asia is where it is. Native Africans have myths about floods. Thus, Noah's account is not a singular incident that occurs exclusively in the Bible. It is an element of a larger narrative. Narrator. The tale of Utnapishtim from the Gilgamesh epic is the first known flood myth. On a set of clay tablets that date back thousands of years, the ancient Sumerian story was found. David Wilcock. The stories of Noah and Utnapishtim are nearly the same. Only a few minor variations exist. According to the Utnapishtim myth, the creatures that communicated to him and alerted him to this did so through his home's walls, and his home later served as the evacuation vessel. Narrator. Utnapishtim gathered all kinds of animals in preparation for the deluge, just like Noah did. However, was it feasible to gather all the different kinds of animals and use them in a single craft? Or could the ark have served as a symbol for another, far more sophisticated and alien kind of transportation? David Wilcock. The Sumerian story's ark has a cube-like shape. Today, scientists are creating models of hyperdimensional physics, where they are charting the mathematical structure and appearance of these higher dimensions. We refer to it as a tesseract. Since a tesseract is a cube inside a cube, the cube mentioned in the original Gilgamesh epic might be a reference to a Stargate portal that employed this kind of hyperdimensional geometry to guarantee that Utnapishtim, all of the animals, and the people he rescued wouldn't be on Earth at all. They managed to withstand the flood in this way. Narrator. According to mainstream archaeologists, ancient civilizations, like those in South America, Asia, and the far-flung Pacific Islands, evolved apart from one another. However, theories of ancient astronauts argue that the parallels between these nations' beliefs and building patterns point to the possibility that they were connected by a global commerce route. David Childress. However, just as we have airports all over the world now, the Vimanas would have had hangars for their craft and airports for them to land in ancient times. These airports would have been located in key locations all around the planet, and in isolated locations, we observe just that. Narrator. Could the enigmatic plateau above Mexico's Oaxaca Valley or the intricate network of lines spanning Peru's Nazca Plain be signs of runways for a global air transportation system? David Childress. Monte Alba is one of the most peculiar archaeological sites in Mexico. It is also a mountain whose summit was entirely removed and flattened to create a very tabletop, flat mountain. Additionally, there is a very old megalithic city nearby. This was most likely a Vimana airport of some sort. Algund Inboom. Given their limited time to go from one region of the Earth to another, Vimanas may constitute a sort of missing connection between the world's isolated cultures. Narrator. The Middle East and ancient Africa also had stories about flying. King Solomon of Israel once presented the Queen of Sheba with a flying carpet as a gift, according to the Kebra Nagast, an Ethiopian sacred text composed before the 2nd century AD. Giorgio H. Tsoukalos. One of the most significant books you've never heard of is the Kebra Nagast. The Book of Kings is what the Kebra Nagast refers to. Additionally, it is the Ethiopians' most revered text. It claims that King Solomon possessed a flying contraption of some kind. Additionally, the phrase flying carpet was always used quite loosely in that region of the world. I want to know if they meant literal flying carpets or if it was just a term used to refer to a flying contraption of some kind. David Childress. The flying magic carpets of the Arabian Nights stories were the first chariots of the gods mentioned by Erich von Däniken. In the Middle East, there are legends of King Solomon owning an airship and traveling to many locations, including certain mountains known as the Solomonic Mountains. These might have been specific airports or places where these Vimanas landed. In the 1920s, Nicholas Roerich, a well-known Russian-American explorer who visited Tibet in Central Asia, asserted that Tibetans had a tradition of King Solomon using this aircraft to come to Tibet. The Kebra Nagast also tells a story of how King Solomon mapped the world with his flying airship. Could these, however, be related to other old maps that some people think were created by aliens? Graham Hancock. A few of these maps depict the planet as it was during the previous ice age, rather than how it is now, and it's quite difficult to express this. The Piri Reis map is well known, but it's possible that few people are aware of the Orontius Phineus map or the Mercator maps, which depict Antarctica in remarkable detail hundreds of years before the continent was even found. Narrator. The Bible, of all places, contains one of the most cited tales of early airplanes. The prophet Ezekiel portrays a flying chariot with wheels inside wheels that is propelled by angels in the book of Ezekiel. Could this be another instance of an alien visitation and evidence that prehistoric airplanes existed, even if Bible historians believe Ezekiel was referring symbolically to Israel's frightening enemies? If we consider the word angel to be a representation of celestial energy, then the flying vehicle in Ezekiel's throne chariot, which appears to have no means of propulsion, sounds much more like a spacecraft because some of the angels are moving back and forth. That sounds like flames then. It sounds like propulsion. A few of them resemble wheels. Those certainly do sound like flying saucers. Our forefathers weren't fools. Ezekiel collapsed to his knees when he witnessed something so terrifying. Then out of God's brightness, a being appeared in shining metal-like clothing and said to Ezekiel, "All right, man, we brought you here. We would like you to measure this structure and monument." "Well, why should I do this?" Ezekiel wonders. "That's why we brought you here," the creature adds. The second section of the book of Ezekiel then contains 40 pages that detail the enormous structure. in which incidentally the Lord's glory descended, measured after measurement,